begin. As we do all the time in every gathering, every time you guys, if we gather in a masjid or you gather around a turkey, we should begin by praising Allah, the Most High, the Most Exalted, the Most Honorable. Testify to His oneness and His greatness. We testify to the prophethood of His final messenger, the seal of the prophets, the last of humans to directly speak to the divine and to guide humanity until the end of time. Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib. I appreciate all of you guys being here. Jazakallah khair, everybody. I know there's a lot going on. I'm sure today's a heavy travel day for a lot of people. I know today is a big prep. I know some people are probably getting ready maybe to go to a retreat or to Houston, or maybe just to hang out with their families. So I hope you guys are enjoying your breaks. I hope you guys are have a wonderful next couple days with the family and enjoy your time, inshallah. And I appreciate you guys being here. Inshallah, today we will be pretty brief because I know there's a lot going on, but it's a special scene that we're in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, discussing some of the important lessons, as we do every week, the important lessons that truly can build and benefit us in different ways. We are not, for those that maybe are their first time, we're not going through the details of the seerah. There's a lot of names, a lot of things. It's not the historical perspective of the seerah. It's more of the developmental perspective of how we can learn from the life of the Prophet ﷺ as our role model, as our mentor, as the person that really had challenges and difficulties in his life that we can learn from. So inshallah ta'ala, that's where we're at. Last week, I'll recap last week quickly. Last week we started off by talking about how revelation began. And that the Prophet ﷺ, he had this habit that he started to do, something he started to love tremendously before revelation began. What was that? What was the thing that he loved to do so much before he became technically a prophet? Anybody remember? Or anybody know? In general? So it became like the most enjoyable thing he did in life. It was like really like he loved doing it, and he started to do it a lot. Anybody know what that was? Take a shot. Very good. He loved to be alone. He loved to be in khalwa, and to be by himself. Actually, it's interesting. I've heard some people speak about how the Prophet ﷺ had some introverted elements to his character. Introverts many times are associated with being antisocial or pulled away. However, even in leadership, there's actually some leadership studies on introverted leaders that they assess and talk about the importance of having time away and cutting yourself away from the day-to-day grind. And how that's extremely important. And we emphasized on this the last time. We talked about the importance of seclusion. We talked about the importance of the research behind the importance of cutting away from your day-to-day grind, cutting away from the music, cutting away from listening to podcasts in your drive. And that induces lots of creativity, thinking about problem solving, future thinking. And that was our discussion last week. We went into research and science on seclusion. It's important, and we discussed, of course, how the Prophet ﷺ would do this for days on end before revelation started. And that's very, very important, and we kind of emphasized on that last time. Last week, then we started, or last time we met, then we discussed the first revelation. The first revelation was, what was the first thing revealed to Prophet Mohammed by Allah Azza wa Jalla? Iqra, very, very good. Surah Al-Alaq, very excellent. And what is Iqra's theme, or at least for the first several verses that came down? What is the theme? Education, excellent. What else? Not just knowing, but also being aware, being conscious, having a mind that's woke, if you will, right? The ayat are really about Iqra, personified just greater than reading. It was really about learning. It was about engaging the mind at a deeper level to understand truths. I had a paper to do today. It was written by Ralph Emerson, 1870s. And he was speaking about the limitations of knowledge, and how the knowledge of books and colleges and institutions is a cage on the mind of humans. He's talking about about a century ago, and how the limitation of a man's mind, and usually it was men, how man's books and writing can limit the minds of humans. Because all you do is you intake what comes from another man and you make that your truths. You make that your beliefs. It's completely sidetracked, right? But Allah began with Iqra to free the mind, to understand the real truths of life directly from the divine, the most objective source of truths. And that's a profound way of us engaging, and we talked about the knowledge of Allah. What the tafsir tells us, that there's the knowledge of the metaphysical world, the divine, the hereafter, etc. If you don't mind giving me a couple of warm stuff. And then there's the knowledge of this world, research and science, and that's what both Iqra's mean. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram. But one refers to knowing about the divine, getting closer to Allah and aware of Him. And the second is getting to know the depths of educational sciences, this world. All the science of this world is for us. And we talk about how the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-hikmah dallatul mu'min. That wisdom in this life is our right. Wherever it is for the believer to go and attain it. And we mentioned and talked about that a little bit. Let me finish, inshallah today, the story of Revelation, at least the initial 2 revelations, and that's really the story of the beginning of Revelation. The Prophet ﷺ comes down from the cave of Hira after this encounter with Jibreel, and we talked about how he ran to Khadija's lap. And in Khadija's lap, radiallahu anha, of course she wasn't, and we discussed how the Prophet ﷺ was very vulnerable. He had this amazing relationship with his wife, that he went running scared to her, into her lap, terrified, and she didn't put him down in any way. She didn't say, what's wrong with you? She didn't freak out like him. She didn't, I think sometimes if the guy sees a cockroach and screams, then the wife screams, and everybody in the house is screaming and nobody knows why. It wasn't that kind of freak out moment. Everybody, Khadija, she understood the Prophet ﷺ was going through something, a major chapter, something happened. She didn't know exactly. She didn't know exactly what it was. But she grounded him with some important principles, and again, we alluded to these today. What were some of these principles that she consoled him with? How did she console him? What did she have him thinking about? By the way, what was he thinking about? Why was he scared? We referred to it a little bit last time. Yes? Very good. So he was scared he saw Angel Jibreel. Is that a normal thing to see? No, it's not a normal thing to see. So he was scared about what he saw. Very good. What else? What else was he worried about? Her words alluded to it. I think we all know the story, right? He was scared that this was something bad that Allah sent to him. Right? He didn't know whether it was good or bad. So a part of the Prophet's, this back and forth, this internal struggle, was that he wasn't sure, is this a good sign from Allah or is this a bad sign? Sometimes, sometimes you might see a dream. And this happens a lot, especially older Arab, maybe they see moms. That you see a dream and, my mom would wake up in the morning and she would be like, oh my God, something bad is going to happen. I saw this bad dream. And you're not sure about, why this happened, why did I see this, what is going on, right? That weird perspective of you're scared, you're not sure. Sometimes we wake up from nightmares the same way. It's imagining a nightmare. The Prophet kind of experienced a nightmare, at least to him. And so he was extremely worried. So what she did was he had these bad thoughts. So what she did is amazing actually, even in psychology, is that she grounded him back into the concepts. She reassured him with all the good that he's done. So she said, no, Allah would never hurt you because you're good to your family, and you're good to the needy, and you're always helping the poor, and you're always helping the orphan, and you're always taking care of, if anybody's in need, you are there. And she is aiding him. And most of the time, when your parents or somebody asks you to do something good, like, hey, when your mom, it's a bad day when your mom tells you, I need you to go and help my friend out. She's moving, or she needs to do this or that, and I need you to go help. Most of the time what we would say, I don't want to. I don't want people to come over. I don't want to go over and help anybody. I don't want to drive anybody. I don't. You know, we really dislike this concept of helping others. Interestingly enough, sometimes, especially when you're married, you also start to dislike if your wife tells you to help her friends or something like that. So, or you leave the house and, hey honey, you know, I have to step out. I need to go help my friend move or pack the house. She'd be like, on a Sunday with the kid, this, that, or the other, right? Like you would start to make it as it's not an easy thing. But Khadija, subhanAllah, it shows also that she was extremely supportive of the Prophet. So if he's bringing somebody's poor in the neighborhood, we're going to bring him over to dinner, honey. Oh, somebody's in need, I need to go out and I need to help them move. I need to drive somebody on my camel. I need to drive somebody in general. It was an extremely supportive relationship as well. You can tell that from the words, right? She's not just happy he does it, she's encouraging him to do it. And that's a very, very, again, profound relationship between them. Khadija radiallahu anha, so she consoles him and she links him back to all his goodness, and that kind of brings him back. What happens after that is, again, just quickly going through the story, at least the highlights, there's a lot of moving parts. She tells him, we're going to go to my cousin. Her cousin, Waraqa bin Nawfal, he was a priest in a sense. He was a scholar of Christian and Hebrew Jewish scriptures, the book that had passed. And he was actually a Christian. He was a part, some scholars mentioned he was of the Christian sect that didn't believe that Jesus was God, but didn't believe that he was human, but they believed that he was something in the middle. So the Prophet goes to him and sits down with him and he tells him what happened. I saw this, I saw that, I saw this. So Waraqa bin Nawfal says, Allahu Akbar, like God is great. And the Prophet was kind of shocked. What's going on? So he says, the thing that came to you was an-namus al-akbar. It's the head of the angels. The one that came to Moses. So he understood the encounter. He understood what happened. And he said, Ya laytani, I wish I was a young man to help you when your people drive you out of your home. Because no man comes with this message except that he is ridiculed and he is oppressed and he is driven out of his home. The Prophet when he said people will drive you out of your home, the Prophet said, they will drive me out of my home? Why me? And so Waraqa told him, no man has come with this message except he was driven out of his home. And so the Prophet didn't mind, people lying about him, didn't mind even being oppressed, but when he said that he would be driven out, that came as a shock to him. And again, this message, we could talk about this, I don't think it's a highlight, but we can highlight it, about the importance, and we'll come to it later, of a revolutionary message to people. That every prophet came with something tremendous to transform his people, but people don't always like that change. People are not always comfortable with this change of mindset or beliefs or actions or ethics or morals that they're not used to. And that is a very, very profound lesson. Not necessarily I want to cover for today. So that's what happens with Waraqa. When the Prophet ﷺ comes back, there is about a 6-month period, and again, usually I tell the story and then we go into breaking down the different important parts that we should dive into. Some scholars mention that from 40 days to about 6 months, some scholars even mention a year, that the Prophet ﷺ did not have any revelation come down. So he did not see Jibreel, he did not get any Quran back. All that happened was that first encounter. Different amounts of period of time. Ibn Abbas and some Sahaba say 40 days, some say several days, some say 6 months, some go up to a year or even more. But most scholars believe it's around 6 months. 2 months to 6 months, no revelation. And what happened is that the Prophet ﷺ started to develop a sense of loneliness and sadness. Tremendous loneliness and sadness. And actually that's what I wanted to highlight today, is the concept of loneliness and sadness in the second part. But he ﷺ really started to miss and look for Jibreel alayhi salam. Khadija would say that the Prophet ﷺ would start to walk around the city and walk around the valleys of Mecca and go to Hira waiting for Jibreel to come back, and Jibreel wouldn't come back. Like everything went back to normal. And he was, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, extremely sad about it. And I'll get to the controversial point that I'd like to cover for today at the end, but this caused like tremendous sadness. And what happened is that after about 6 months, Jibreel alayhi salam, as the Prophet is in Cave Hira, walking back home, the Prophet is walking and hears somebody saying, Muhammad. And so the Prophet looks back and he doesn't see anybody. So he hears the name Muhammad again. And he looks to his left. Muhammad looks to his right. And somebody's calling his name, but he doesn't see. Until he suddenly looks up and he sees the angel Jibreel in his true form, covering the entire horizon, sitting on a throne. Jibreel alayhi salam is described as other angels, that they have wings. Jibreel alayhi salam had how many wings? Over 600 wings. With one feather of one wing, Allah tells us, He took the people of Lut and He brought them up like a pancake and flipped them with one feather of one wing. So this a tremendous stature blocked out the horizon. The entire sky was filled with Him. So the Prophet ﷺ was in shock. Like, what is that? And different narrations, one narration mentions that he froze, another narration mentions that he fell. And then he got up and he started to run again back home. And as he's running, same place, running back to his home, back to Khadija, back to his bedroom, and he covers himself up, and Jibreel alayhi salam comes down and he reveals to him the second revelation, which is, Ya ayyuhal muddathir. O you who are covered under the garment, Qum fa'anzir, stand up and preach or proclaim. وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ, and your Lord exalt or honor. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, and your garments purify. وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ, and all impurities, meaning of worship or ethics, get or go far away from them. Leave them alone. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ, and be patient with your Lord. Be patient. Everything is going to be okay. SubhanAllah, this second revelation, again, profound revelation, that we'll dive into a little bit right now, but it is the second revelation Allah gave the Prophet ﷺ in this message. The scholars mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ became officially a Nabi. He officially became a person instructed or being inspired by Allah Azza wa Jal, which is a Nabi, different discussion, again, long discussion that we could talk about, but he became a prophet. At that moment, Allah Azza wa Jal told him to stand and call the people. And that was the first time that the Prophet ﷺ had to actively go out and start to call the people. So, diving into the words very quickly and briefly, again, because you should listen to the tafsir of this, by the way. It's really profound when you listen to the seerah and you understand the Quran. The Quran and the seerah match. You know, it's like peanut butter and jelly. You cannot have, like, you can't fully taste the sandwich if you're only reading one or studying one without the other. They work hand in hand. The Quran is not random words. It came down strategically to the Prophet ﷺ. So, first, of course, here this metaphorical, leave the world, leave everything behind. Like, get up out of your comfort zone, because everything is going to change now, right? Qum ya ayyuhal muddathir, qum fa'anzir. Like, stand up and proclaim. Of course, this proclamation here is what Allah instructed the Prophet, like, you're going to teach people about Allah now. Like, you're going to teach people about Islam. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِرْ, and exalt your Lord, connect your Lord. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. I'm particularly interested in this part. And why does Allah Azza wa Jal tell the Prophet clean your clothes? Like, hey, you're a prophet, stand up and call the people, make sure you praise your Lord, and clean your clothes. Right? It seems a bit, it's like, oh, okay. But subhanAllah, profound lessons again. And there's a lot of angles I could take to this. Today I spoke a little bit about the importance that Islam came to beautify humanity. That one of the mission or goals of Islam is to bring beauty and dignity to humanity. And I don't think we talk about that a lot. A part of that is your internal beauty, like your soul, your mind, your heart, but also your external beauty. That's an emphasis here, particularly in cleanliness and hygiene. And I'll get into some of the research on presentation. Presentation is how people see you. How you present yourself is who you are to the world. And the way that Allah Azza wa Jalla wanted the Prophet to start is by emphasizing on cleanliness, emphasizing on purity, emphasizing on being chic, right? Emphasizing on being very well put and well dressed, and particularly clean here. And the scholars, they can mention, they talk about a lot of things. Again, it's not a tafsir. You should go into read up maybe about it, or go to listen to a lecture about it. But there's a nice emphasis on, your perception, the clothing and garments that you wear, the smell, the hygiene, the odor, things in the middle of the desert that you wouldn't emphasize on, things that are not important. But Allah thought of it as being so important that it was an essential part of being a prophet. Like, it's not just what you're going to say and how you're going to connect to Allah, but it's also how people are going to see you. And how people see you tremendously impacts if they believe you or not, if they're receptive to your message or not. And of course there's, you can get into marketing and branding and all important things about images and what they do to the world and how they perceive things and how different, I just was listening to a study today. A study recently done, talked about, because this is an important part I'm going to emphasize on, is that a study, presentation of yourself. Such subtle things affect humans in presentation. A study done by a company that sells furniture online, they said that they had on their website, on their main portal page, where people are going into search on their website. They said that they had an image or background of clouds, and that they noticed that almost 30 to 40% of the people that bought furniture from them with the image of clouds in the background tended to buy furniture that was soft. And in another interface, this was a study, they did it as a study. In the other interface, they had in the background of the website, they had pennies as the background, a whole bunch of pennies. And they said that they noticed that almost half of the people that purchased off of their website seeing pennies, that they tended to buy cheaper things off of the website. They tended to be more focused on cost. So much insight, and there's a lot of other research, on the simple things, that how you dress or how you appear to others, how that impacts who you are to somebody. It's, that first presentation. And subhanAllah, what Allah emphasizes on particularly here, at least in these ayat, is if the last messenger of God is going to come and talk to people, like he's got to look clean. And I think for us, looking clean means a lot, but like emphasizing on cleanliness, presentability, odor, hygiene, and there's a lot of things that are discussed here. But this, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, is a profound message to Arabs that live in the middle of the desert, that nobody even cares maybe to, like who would wash their clothes, or who cares about cleanliness. It's so dirty, or it's filthy, or it's unkept. But again, about the importance of the message. Powerful message, for example. Second is, again, the concept for today is loneliness. That's what I'm going to focus on. But I'm just giving you really the three main points from today. The second is influence and persuasion. The Prophet ﷺ, after that revelation goes, he starts to go out and recruit or influence people. Call them to his message. The first person that accepts is Khadija. The second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth person to accept is? No. Who are the first set of people to accept the Prophet's message? Huh? No? Anybody know? Anybody, please. So his wife. So actually, very good. Waraka did believe, that's true. But from that moment, after that. Yes? Go ahead. Oh, that dude, yeah, that guy. Yeah, no, he's not second though. But I'll talk about that guy in a second. Anybody know? It's actually not talked about a lot. It's actually pretty sad. If your dad has an idea to take a trip to Bora Bora for a family vacation during Thanksgiving, who is the first person that he goes to? He goes to your mom and then all his kids, right? Right? Wouldn't he go to the mom and all his kids first? And they're like, hey guys, what do you think about going on a trip Thanksgiving in Bora Bora? They're like, oh, I don't know, Dad. I didn't hang out with my friends on Thanksgiving. Can't spend time with you old people, right? And that's a joke. You guys can laugh. So the first people to accept the Prophet's message was his wife and his daughters, Ruqayya, Zainab, Kulthum, and Fatima. We should know that. Actually, I think it's sad that people don't emphasize on that. That the first people to accept the Prophet's message was his family, and particularly his wife and his daughters. It was Khadija and his daughters. So they supported Daddy, and they were the first followers of Daddy, and they were the first supporters of Daddy, right? And again, it's not something so common, right? If your dad comes up with a weird idea or some new thing, are you buying in very quickly? Are you supporting? You know what, guys? We're gonna move to Dallas, and everybody's gonna go, or we're gonna move to Seattle, or we're gonna move to Alaska, and I'm gonna pursue my dreams of being a buffalo hunter. Who's supportive in helping Daddy? No, right? It's like, wait a minute. Is my life gonna be uncomfortable because of this? Because I'm not really sure I'm willing to commit. Actually, their lives would become tremendously uncomfortable. And they would take great risks, not just in themselves, not just in their reputations, but their lives would be on the line. And they were willing to support. So it's actually a strong, a very powerful message that the Prophet's family was the first people to buy in. And that they not just loved their dad, but now they're willing to support to the ends of the globe what would happen to them and their dad. Right? You guys wouldn't move to Alaska. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I would have. I wouldn't do such a dramatic thing. But again, it was that buy-in that they had. Powerful. Then, who comes after that is, I'm sorry? Not Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. After that, again, Abu Bakr is the first man. Yes, but not the first person. Yes. So after his wife and daughters is who? Two people that the Prophet was in his house raising. First it was Zayd bin Haritha, who was the adopted son at the time, so his name was actually Zayd bin Muhammad, and he was the slave boy that his father came to take him away, and he said no. We talked about that story, right? He said, no, I want to stay with Muhammad. So the Prophet went out and adopted him, right? So that was Zayd. He accepted, and Ali bin Abi Talib. The Prophet, a couple of years before prophethood, he went to his uncles and he told his uncles, because Abu Talib he was very poor and having a difficult time with his children. So the uncles and the Prophet, his brothers and his nephew, they decided to take some of the children to take care of them financially and take the stress off of Abu Talib. Who came to the Prophet was Ali. Ali was around 8 or 9 years old. The Prophet took him when he was around 5 years old. So he raised Ali radiallahu anhu in his own house. Right? By the way, it wasn't just the Prophet ﷺ, it was Khadija and his daughters that raised Ali, their young cousin. So that was the second person. So wife, daughters, then Zayd, then Ali, and then his best friend Abu Bakr. That's kind of the general order. Abu Bakr, the Prophet ﷺ said, I went to Abu Bakr and I told him I'm a Nabi. He said, you are a Nabi. And the Prophet said, there was no, again, do your best friends buy in? If tomorrow you decided to become a business owner to sell styrofoam coffee cups, and you went to your best friend and told him, would you be willing to buy my first styrofoam? They'd be like, styrofoam coffee cups? Let alone accepting a message that humanity would attack you and your family and your country and your city would want to kill you and destroy you because of. Right? Let alone, can we convince people to even buy a styrofoam cup from us? And that's where influence and persuasion come in. The Prophet's rep, like his relationship power, was extremely powerful. The Prophet said, every single human being that I talk to, meaning like the men, every person that I told I'm a prophet, they all asked me, what does that mean? What do you believe? Blah, blah, blah. Except Abu Bakr. I told him, I'm a Nabi. He said, Anta Nabi. That's it, boom, that's it. And he accepted. And that's why he's called Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Right? The one that always believes the truth. Excellent. Very, very cool. And then there's other people that began. Abu Bakr goes and brings Uthman and Talha and Zubayr and Sa'd ibn Waqqas and others. Then Islam starts to spread. I'll talk about that a little bit more next time, inshallah, how the Prophet's influence started to spread. But influence and persuasion we'll emphasize on as Islam grows, that there are techniques and things that we should understand. The first of them is that relationship, that trust, that ability I'm all in, man. I believe in you so much that whatever you do, I know it's going to be the best thing for me and my future. Right? That's a very, very, we don't even get that with our kids, or we don't even get that with our friends, but that's the level of leadership and influence that the Prophet had. The last point, inshallah, is, and I'm going to show a video about it, and then I'll take some questions before we show the video. The last point is the point I want to emphasize on, and it's about loneliness. So it's a very much a controversy. I don't even know if I should be recording or talking about this. I mean, people talk about it. It's not a secret, but it's not really brought into light a lot. The Prophet ﷺ in al-Bukhari, the hadith is, we're going to talk about the authenticity of the hadith, but the Prophet ﷺ in al-Bukhari was mentioned that when there was no revelation in those 6 months, that he went through tremendous sadness, tremendous loneliness, like he felt extremely sad because there was no revelation, that he climbed and was willing to throw himself off the mountain. That's what the hadith says. So many scholars dive into this, and I think for the elders you should know that there are several scholars. So the hadith is in al-Bukhari, is in one of the most authentic hadith books in history. It is the most authentic hadith book, as many scholars mentioned, after the Quran. However, there are several scholars that don't believe in the authenticity of the hadith for several reasons. Not just what it means, but also the origins or the chain of the hadith. But there are much more people that believe that this is authentic hadith. But there isn't a really good, or I haven't come across a really good explanation of this, other than the Prophet was sad, and he just had this feeling of sadness. Depression. You could say it got to the point of depression. And actually, if you do research on suicide or depression in general, and we kind of study it, and I would like for us to watch a TED Talk about it, is that you do realize that suicide is really the source of extreme loneliness, extreme isolation. Rooted in not just depression, it's not just being sad or severely sad, but it's the concept of being extremely lonely. Like there's no hope. Like there's nobody that's willing to listen. And one of the greatest places on earth that people throw themselves off is the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. So I found a really strong, very powerful TED Talk about an officer that works on the Golden Gate Bridge and the discussion of throwing himself off. Again, I know this is not, we're not saying the Prophet was suicidal, and obviously that becomes very difficult to explain, or the concept, and whether you on the side, and again, there's clear difference of opinion on whether it's valid or not. But even let's say it is valid, and let's say that we're going to try to understand what's going on. Again, I think it's a perspective, number one, of the humanity of the Prophet ﷺ. And we talked about this, right? He was scared when revelation began, and he was extremely lonely when it stopped. He was extremely human. And that shows a very, very important vulnerable state of the Prophet ﷺ. He wasn't some grandiose king that just had some, magical moment where he became the chosen person, right? Like Donald Trump being elected, or, false prophets that come. It's actually, it's a very humble experience, and we get that image inside the Prophet ﷺ. But again, the concept of loneliness and how it leads to suicide is what I want us to focus on. So if you guys don't mind, we'll watch the video, and I think it's good insight in understanding this part of the seerah, inshallah ta'ala. Any questions? I'll take your questions at the end. Let's watch the video first. Inshallah. Oh no, it's not. No? No, but it should be connected to the sound system, no? Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, maybe I should have tested this out. Oh, okay. Okay. I'll put the microphone. Should I put the closed caption on?
Retired from the California Highway Patrol after 23 years of service. The majority of those 23 years was spent patrolling the southern end of Marin County, which includes the Golden Gate Bridge. The bridge is an iconic structure known worldwide for its beautiful views of San Francisco, the Pacific Ocean, and its inspiring architecture. Unfortunately, there's also a magnet for suicide, being one of the most utilized sites in the world. The Golden Gate Bridge opened in 1937. Joseph Strauss, chief engineer in charge of building the bridge, was quoted as saying, "The bridge is practically suicide-proof. Suicide from the bridge is neither practical nor probable. But since its opening, over 1,600 people have leapt to their death from that bridge." Some believe that traveling between the two towers will lead you to another dimension. This bridge has been romanticized as such. That the fall from that frees you from all your worries and grief, and the waters below will cleanse your soul. But let me tell you what actually occurs when the bridge is used as a means of suicide. After a free fall of 4 to 5 seconds, the body strikes the water at about 75 miles an hour. That impact shatters bones, some of which then puncture vital organs. Most die on impact. Those that don't generally flail in the water helplessly and then drown. I don't think that those who contemplate this method of suicide realize how grisly a death that they would face. This is the cord. Except for around the two towers, just 32 inches of steel paralleling the bridge. This is where most folks stand before taking their lives. I can tell you from experience that once the person is on that cord, and at their darkest time, it is very difficult to bring them back. I took this photo last year as this young woman spoke to an officer contemplating her life. I want to tell you very happily that we were successful that day in getting her back over the rail. When I first began working on the bridge, we had no formal training. You struggled to funnel your way through these calls. This was not only to service to those contemplating suicide, but to the officers as well. We've come a long, long way since then. Now, veteran officers and psychologists train new officers. This is Jason Garber. I met Jason on July 22nd of last year when when I received a call of a possible suicidal subject sitting on the court near mid-span. I responded, and when I arrived, I observed Jason speaking to a Golden Gate Bridge officer. Jason was just 32 years old and had flown out here from New Jersey. As a matter of fact, he had flown out here on 2 other occasions from New Jersey to attempt suicide on this bridge. After about an hour of speaking with Jason, he asked us if we knew the story of Pandora's box. Recalling your Greek mythology, Zeus created Pandora and sent her down to earth with a box and told her never, ever open that box. One day, curiosity got the better of Pandora, and she did open the box. Out flew plagues, sorrows, and all sorts of evils against man. The only good thing in the box was hope. Jason then asked us, what happens when you open the box and hope isn't there? He paused a few moments, leaned to his right, and was gone. This kind, intelligent young man from New Jersey had just committed suicide. I spoke with Jason's parents that evening, and I suppose that when I was speaking with them that I didn't sound as if I was doing very well. Because that very next day, their family rabbi called to check on me. Jason's parents had asked him to do so. The collateral damage of suicide affects so many people. I pose these questions to you. What would you do if your family member, friend, or loved one was suicidal? What would you say? Would you know what to say? In my experience, it's not just the talking that you do, but the listening. Listen to understand. Don't argue, blame, or tell the person you know how they feel. Because you probably don't. By just being there, you may just be the turning point that they need. If you think someone is suicidal, don't be afraid to confront them and ask the question. One way of asking the question is like this. Others in similar circumstances have thought about ending their life. Have you had these thoughts? Confronting the person head on may just save their life from being a turning point for them. Some other signs to look for: hopelessness, believing that things are terrible and never going to get better. Helplessness, believing that there's nothing that you can do about it. Recent social withdrawal, and loss of interest in life. I came to this talk just a couple of days ago, and I received an email from a lady that I'd like to read you her letter. She lost her son on January 19th of this year. And she wrote me this email just a couple of days ago. And it's with her permission and blessing that I read this to you. Hi, Kevin. I imagine you're at the TED conference. That must be quite the experience to be there. I'm thinking I should go walk the bridge this weekend. Just wanted to drop you a note. Hope you get the word out to many people and they go home talking about it to their friends who tell their friends, etc. I'm still pretty numb, but noticing more moments of really realizing Mike isn't coming home. Mike was driving from Petaluma to San Francisco to watch the 49er game with his father on January 19th. He never made it there. I called Petaluma police and reported him missing that evening. The next morning, 2 officers came to my home and reported that Mike's car was down at the bridge. A witness had observed him jumping off the bridge at 1:58 p.m. the previous day. Thanks so much for standing up for those who may be only temporarily too weak to stand for themselves. Who hasn't been low before without suffering from a true mental illness? It shouldn't be so easy to end it. My prayers are with you for your fight. The GGB, Golden Gate Bridge, is supposed to be a passage across our beautiful bay, not a graveyard. Good luck this week, Vicky. I can't imagine the courage it takes for her to go down to that bridge and walk the path that her son took that day. And also the courage just to carry on. I'd like to introduce you to a man I refer to as Hope and Courage. On March 11th of 2005, I responded to a radio call of a possible suicidal subject on the bridge sidewalk near the North Tower. I rode my motorcycle down the sidewalk and observed this man, Kevin Berthia, standing on the sidewalk. When he saw me, he immediately traversed that pedestrian rail and stood on that small pipe which goes around the tower. For the next hour and a half, I listened as Kevin spoke about his depression and hopelessness. Kevin decided on his own that day to come back over that rail and give life another chance. When Kevin came back over, I congratulated him. This is a new beginning, a new life. But I asked him, what was it that made you come back and give hope and life another chance? And you know what he told me? He said, you listened. You let me speak, and you just listened. Shortly after this incident, I received a letter from Kevin's mother, and I have that letter with me. And I'd like to read it to you. Dear Mr. Briggs, nothing will erase the events of March 11th, but you are one of the reasons Kevin is still with us. I truly believe Kevin was crying out for help. He has been diagnosed with a mental illness for which he has been properly medicated. I adopted Kevin when he was only 6 months old, completely unaware of any hereditary traits. But thank God, now we know. Kevin is straight, as he says. We truly thank God for you. Sincerely indebted to you, Narvella Berthia. And on the bottom, she writes, P.S. When I visited San Francisco General Hospital that evening, you were listed as the patient. Boy, did I have to straighten that one out. Today, Kevin is a loving father and contributing member of society. He speaks openly about the events that day and his depression in the hopes that his story will inspire others. Suicide is not just something I've encountered on the job. It's personal. My grandfather committed suicide by poisoning. That act, although ending his own pain, robbed me from ever getting to know him. This is what suicide does. For most suicidal folks, or those contemplating suicide, they wouldn't think of hurting another person. They just want their own pain to end. Typically, this is accomplished in just 3 ways: sleep, drugs or alcohol, or death. In my career, I've responded to and been involved in hundreds of mental illness and suicide calls around the bridge. Of those incidents I've been directly involved with, I've only lost 2, but that's too many. One was Jason. The other was a man I spoke to for about an hour. During that time, he shook my hand on 3 occasions. On that final handshake, he looked at me and he said, Kevin, I'm sorry, but I have to go. And he left. Horrible, absolutely horrible. I do want to tell you though, the vast majority of folks that we do get to contact on that bridge do not commit suicide. Additionally, that very few who have jumped off the bridge and lived and can talk about it, that 1 to 2%, most of those folks have said that the second that they let go of that rail, they knew that they had made a mistake and they wanted to live. I tell people, the bridge not only connects Marin to San Francisco, but people together also. That connection or bridge that we make is something that each and every one of us should strive to do. Suicide is preventable. There is help. There is hope. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I don't know if that was too long. But important message, I think, a very profound message, a very important message about the concept of building bridges with people. And that's, subhanAllah, again, sometimes the core of someone's sadness or someone's even thought of hurting themselves stems from, again, those concepts of hopelessness, helplessness, nobody to talk or listen to. And those are really cured with interaction with somebody else. Having somebody else listen, having somebody else understand, having somebody else be there. That's all. It's building that bridge. And I thought it was a very powerful message. And again, subhanAllah, even we're discussing the seerah of the Prophet Allah Azza cured that loneliness in him with Surah Al-Duha that we'll maybe go through a little bit later or next time. But Allah Azza told him, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Oh Muhammad, it was cut off for a little bit, but Allah Azza never forsaked you and He didn't forget about you. So even the Prophet's loneliness or sadness in this cutoff was the way Allah Azza addressed him directly in that I'm never cutting you off and I'm always there for you. So it's a very powerful message, and so I hope that was beneficial. Any thoughts or reflections or questions, if you guys have any? Yes, تفضل. Allah barak fiik. Allah barak fiik. Allah barak fiik. Absolutely. Everybody, yes. Yeah.
What kind of fertility? This is what is normal. So how come they would go themselves?
Yeah, I believe, I think that's from a different perspective, right? People that are extreme, right? For sure, it's not something that people want to talk about. But extreme people have severe mental illness. I mean, most of these people have been through traumatic experiences. People don't grow up in war-like situations and grow up perfectly fine. So people that are always seeing death and destruction around them, they automatically think and are angry at the world. Why did my country get bombed? Why did my home get bombed? Why did my mom get killed? Why did my sisters? Right? So there's this natural anger. So it becomes a form of an illness for sure. Now it's not politically correct to say that terrorists are mentally ill, but they are mentally ill for the most part. They are not within their logical capacity. It has nothing to do with the deen. It has much more to do with the circumstances and their development, the trauma that they've been through, the challenges they're going through in their life, that mental illness. So I think, again, it's not politically correct, but I know we need to look at that part. Because mental illness can lead to a lot of bad outcomes, harming yourself or harming other people, right? So really, we need counselors, therapists, we need parents that are very open to going or taking their children to therapy, going to counselors or therapy themselves, and it not be something that's taboo. I think, and subhanAllah, we had several counselors the past couple of weeks. I think it would benefit everybody to go through therapy at some point in their life, or a challenge, or even sitting down with a mentor or somebody that they can speak to, because it's very healthy for them. Wallahu a'lam, I think it's more mental illness than anything else. The deen itself is not the problem. It's the mind of the person understanding the deen in the way that they want. Wallahu a'lam.
One thing
Yeah.
sitting with me alone would be good or bad.
So subhanAllah, you saw both of them, right?
Yes.
So we talked about last time. We talked about the importance of spending alone time, right? Cutting off from technology, cutting off and finding yourself for sure. But that alone time shouldn't lead to, if it's because of sadness or because of hopelessness or helplessness, it's better to be around people. You don't want to cut off, right? The signs of suicide are somebody that sleeps often, sometimes gets addicted to drugs or alcohol, right? There's a sadness in there that needs to be cured. So it's very healthy when you're proactive. When you're being alone on purpose, that's good. But when you're being alone because of the feelings of sadness or helplessness, somebody should talk to that person. Sometimes it could be a teenager. And by the way, it happens. We all have those moments. But if it's extremely often, they don't like to wake up. They don't like to come out of bed. They don't like to see people. Parents shouldn't take it lightly. It should be taken care of right away as much as possible. Any other comments or questions? Yeah. Yes.
They themselves want to find an avenue to express.
Yes.
But then most of the time it's always neglected, suppressed, or turned away.
Yeah. And they emphasize on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So therefore, then they resort to, okay, I want to be left alone because
Nobody's listening.
is going to be listening.
Sorry. Right.
That's fine.
Yeah. And one of the important parts of listening is just to listen. Right? And he emphasized on that. Like he would spend an hour or two with the person, just them speaking. And a lot of times they say, nobody's ever listened to me before. Right? So it's just the listening part. Without judgment, without interruption, just understanding what's going on. And subhanAllah, humans tend to get themselves through it after they hear somebody. You know, they console in somebody. That's very, very powerful. Everybody, I'm sorry if it's a sad note. I hope that inshallah tomorrow is a happy note for you and your families. Do spend time with your family, enjoy yourselves, create fun times, do silly things, enjoy yourselves, inshallah, create happiness in your life. That's really one of the ways to be offensive and proactive about situations like this. If you guys are traveling, I know maybe some people are going to the retreat, or if you're traveling in general, spend good time with your family, discuss, talk about things, mention different stories. It's always a good time to open up and not just listen to music, or not just not talk to each other or fight sometimes, but to create some conversations that are healthy and beneficial. Barakallahu feekum, jazakallahu khairan. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks, inshallah ta'ala, for our next session. Wassalamu alaikum. How's it going, Dean? How are you? Good, alhamdulillah. How was the meeting upstairs? Last part. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. How's work going? Alhamdulillah. Still at JC Penney? Okay, cool. Oh, it's hectic time, right? Friday. So tomorrow you have work? Oh wow. What time do you guys have work tomorrow? AM? PM? Wow. Oh wow. Wow. Allah. That is that's very tough. Yeah, I forget. Okay, subhanAllah. So you'll spend some time with the family tomorrow in the morning and then you have to be at work. Yeah. Oh yes, mashallah, mabruk, that's right, alhamdulillah. How's she doing? Mashallah. Yes. I know. Brother Mohammed, right? Yeah, alhamdulillah. They're living on their own. Oh, nice. Okay, very cool. Mashallah, very cool. Alhamdulillah. Mashallah. How are you guys doing? Yeah. Yeah. Brother Mustafa's marketing rep, Alex Sahtullah. Yes. What is your official position?
I'm a videographer.
Videographer. Oh, not marketing.
No.
Okay.
But what type of marketing?
Ibrahim.
She has a bachelor's degree in marketing.
Out.
She's
Right?
taking some courses in digital marketing.
You know what? I'll make sure you don't go to college. Okay.
Allah Yakfikum. He works for Muslim Legal Fund
Get out.
of America. Yeah, do you know it? It's a Muslim organization. They
We are a nonprofit charity that funds fund the lawyers defenses in court.
yeah. So federal, state, criminal, immigration. Yeah.
And then we just started nonprofits, businesses like things of that sort, like how to make sure you're compliant with the law.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it's a good opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's good. كيف حالك سنة؟ الله يبارك فيك شيخنا، الله يبارك فيك. جزاك الله خير. نعم. والله أنا I put on YouTube. I put some of the lectures. أولادك بيجوا هنا؟ ما شاء الله. ما شاء الله. نعم. أنا مسؤول عن تربية الشباب يعني courses, classes, workshops, training camps. Okay. Oh yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. I give you a master's in And I'd like to get hopefully into consulting some different things. Of course, yeah.
Go away, I'm not giving you one.
I agree, I'll get to it.
I'm waiting for my doctor in the youth room. Hurry up! He's opening it for me!
Where is the it's for company?
I don't know, it's my jacket.
Oh, okay. It's probably the company. Yes, Sure. Oh, of course, I study a lot of, I study most of the leadership business. Yeah. Because the studies and the research.
أنا برسل لك إن شاء الله. الله يرضى عليك. شكرا جزيلا. Yes, I have.
Okay, great.
أعطيني سجل لي رقم.
I'll text you.
الله يرضى عليك.
عليك صح خلاص. Found it? Great job, kid. Great job. Okay, so then I